Right now, the superhero movie is a hot commodity in Hollywood. But it does lead to the question of, where did it all begin? Can we follow the trail of celluloid back in time to find the start of the genre? It goes far beyond Richard Donner's Superman, beyond Superman and the Mole Men, and even the oldest Batman serials. In my research, most places tried to claim that the title of the first superhero movie belonged to 1920's The Mark of Zorro, starring everybody's hero, Douglas Fairbanks. Although this does fit the bill, I've seen some corners of the internet making the argument for another picture, one that would beat The Mark of Zorro to that title by about 4 years. But not everyone's convinced, so I've decided I need to check it out for myself. Today we are looking back at the 1916 French film serial Judex from director Louis Feuillet. Apart from Judex, Feuillet is probably most famous for directing the 1915 film serial Les Vampires. This was often cited as a pivotal cinematic achievement in genre filmmaking and a revolutionary thriller that influenced the likes of Alfred Hitchcock. Judex carries a lot of the thriller elements and social commentary found in Les Vampires, but does it include the elements we think of in the superhero genre? A secret identity, powers or extraordinary fighting skills, a secret lair or a damsel in distress? It took me the full 5-hour runtime to make a determination. This was a long one. I had to really buckle in. It's important to remember that this is a serial and not a traditional movie. I don't really cover many serials on this channel because they kind of lean closer to what we think of for like a TV show. And those also just take longer to watch. These serials were described as chapter plays, which function far more like our idea of modern television, where you would return to the theater or Nickelodeon to watch a new entry or multiple chapters in a row. Some distributors even had the equivalent of a Saturday morning cartoon in the form of a Saturday matinee. And although Judex may not have been explicitly aimed towards children, it still leaned very much into the sense of mysticism that they could enjoy. The story starts with a rich banker named Favreau, whose immoral practices have brought him a lot of wealth, but at the cost of leaving many impoverished from his crimes. He receives a threatening letter one day from a mysterious man named Judex, who tells him that he must donate everything he has to charity or he will die that evening. Favreau, of course, refuses, and at his dinner is struck dead before his guests, daughter, and grandchild. But it's not what they think. Favreau has only been poisoned, and in the dead of night, Judex comes in and steals his body away to his lair. When Favreau awakens, he's imprisoned by Judex, his brother Roger, and a man named Pietre, who lost his son, his life, and pretty much everything due to this crooked banker. Judex keeps him under lock and key while sending proof to his daughter Jacqueline of his crimes. In grief of learning who her father truly is and his amoral actions, she decides to donate the family fortune to charity. What follows then is a series of kind of misadventures across 12 episodes, where a group of criminals try to find and free Favreau in order to secure a portion of his fortune for themselves. All while Jacqueline and her daughter are caught in the middle of the criminal and Judex's schemes. I'm sure you can realize a couple of obvious issues here with claiming this is the first superhero movie. First and foremost is that, hero part. I mean, doesn't Judex kind of sound a little bit more like the villain here? He is kidnapping a man and holding him hostage against his will. It's even worse when you realize that the conditions Judex chooses to keep Favreau in are so torturous that it literally drives him mad. And Judex really doesn't ever seem to feel that much remorse about it. But revenge can be a motivating factor in superhero movies. This will be a spoiler discussion on the full serial, so if you're wanting to watch it, be sure to check it out and come back. Near the third act, Judex's real identity ends up being... forgive me everyone who is actually French. I'm so sorry. His real identity is Jacques de Trémouze. I am sorry. I do apologize. Judex ends up being the son of a man who was intentionally bankrupt by Favreau and ended up committing suicide. And this leads to Judex promising his mother to get revenge. Like I said, this is a theme that can be found in, other superhero media, such as Batman with his parents' death, or The Mask of Zorro, or V for Vendetta, if you consider the latter, I guess, a superhero. But thinking back on it, Judex may have actually leaned closest to a character like V, who is also bent on revenge and creating a revolution. So even though it is, not the most heroic action, it isn't exactly unmotivated. The serial has a lot of back and forths between Judex and the criminals led by Diana Monti, played by actress Musadora. Now, Musadora was casted as a villain in a lot of her famous roles, including that of Irma Vep in Les Vampires. And in case you didn't realize, Irma Vep is an anagram for vampires, so very clever. But she's very good in, another villainous turn, and provides a good foil for the anti-hero as she tries to free Favreau for her own selfish interests. The damsel in distress and main love interest is Jacqueline Favreau, which I imagine gets a little complicated when you're trying to court someone while also secretly holding their father hostage and, mentally torturing them. But what's a little thing like that going to get in the way of love? The serial ultimately climaxes with a confrontation aboard the criminal's ship. Musadora's Diana Monti has successfully recovered Favreau, but he refuses to leave without his daughter or granddaughter. So they plan to kidnap Jacqueline. Again, this does happen quite a bit in this serial, 6 or 7 times. However, the villains never get the chance as Judex arrives and reveals his true identity. A fight commences and Favreau eventually agrees to return to shore and face true judgment at the hands of his daughter. She eventually forgives them both for their actions, which is very forgiving, given the terrible things both of them have done. Favreau decides he's going to stay dead to the world and live out the rest of his life in penance for his past actions. Meanwhile, Judex and Jacqueline are married. Again, you'd think this would cause, a little bit of an issue in that relationship, with the whole kidnapping the father-in-law and everything. At the very least, you'd think that it would make for an awkward Thanksgiving. You can tell that I'm giving a pretty short and very, very, very condensed summary here. This is because this is a long serial, and I've just broken it down to the very basics so we can focus on the big main question. Is this the first superhero ever brought to screen? Well, let's go through some of the biggest trademarks of the genre. Judex himself has many times been cited as an inspiration for other heroes, most notably Zorro and to an even greater extent, the Shadow. The similarities between Judex and the Shadow, they're pretty hard to ignore. Even their character designs, their early ones at least, are pretty interchangeable. And Judex fits a lot of the superhero bill. You have a main character operating under an alias and using dark clothing and makeup to disguise his true identity. You have a secret lair for the hero, and even his brother Roger serves a very similar role as, say, Alfred in the Batman comics. You have a love interest that he cannot be with due to his dual life, and said love interest keeps finding herself kidnapped and in life and death situations, and has to constantly be, rescued by Judex, who even wears a cape. So, pretty standard superhero stuff. So what's the catch here? Judex clearly was making use of a lot of these tropes before the term superhero had even been coined, and likely was contributing to the influence of a lot of the ideas in the genre. I think what it comes down to for me is intention. Even though there are fights in Judex where our hero trades fisticuffs with the bad guys, he mostly isn't a fighter at all. He is far more of a crafty schemer, someone who uses indirect methods to keep himself concealed. His identity is kept secret less by the use of a mask or costume alias, and the closest he gets to it is utilizing some pretty convincing prosthetics. His method of staying secret is pretty much not to be seen at all, to the point that he even sends dogs out to do his dirty work for him and help rescue people. Very well-trained animals, by the way. Good dogs. And don't even start getting your hopes up for any kind of superpowers. There are none to be found here, unless you count, getting off the hook constantly for really heinous and awful actions. And these moral conundrums do make him feel like less of a hero and more of an anti-hero. And that's if we're being really generous. He's not supposed to be heroic so much as a man of mystery. As a result, fights are pretty minimal across the 5-hour runtime. The superhero subgenre tends to fall into the wider, action and adventure genre. Not always, but usually. Judex is far more of a crime drama or thriller, similar to Feyudad's previous film, Le Vampires, or Fantomas. In fact, this has general pacing problems that I usually take issues with in serials. But I will give them credit that it has some genuinely good intrigue, backed up by fun characters like the mysterious Judex, the always entertaining Musadora, or even a Jimmy Olsen-esque sidekick in the form of an orphan named the Licorice Kid, a child actor who was impressively great at some silent physicality. My bone to pick is mostly with those that would categorize this as the first ever superhero. In my opinion, the 1920 Mask of Zorro would still hold this title. This is because of intention. Unlike Judex, they were trying to create a character who was by nature heroic and fighting criminals because it was the right thing to do, and leaned more into this primarily action-adventure extravaganza. Not all superheroes need to be like that. Many don't, and many even challenge the idea of this. But you can't have Judex deconstructing a genre that doesn't exist yet. As a result, I give Judex full credit for being a major influence on the genre, for inspiring some big-name characters such as Zorro, who would go on to inspire even bigger-name characters like Batman. But I do give it far more credit for continuing Feuillet's influence on the crime and thriller genre, which in my book is just as great of an accomplishment. Those are just my thoughts on Judex. The maybe, sorta, kinda, almost first superhero film. We'll be checking out The Mask of Zorro in due time, so be sure to subscribe for that. Until then, please keep those reels turning. Thank you.